Well, good afternoon, YouTube. This is Chuck, and it's Wednesday, October 2nd, about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and Flapjack and I are out here in the van, and I decided to come out here to try to shoot a video, and he wanted to come along. So, this could be a little bit of a follow-up. I got a couple of new stories for you, and it could be a Bigfoot video, and a couple of kind of interesting things that happened. And one of them, I'll have to paraphrase because it came in initially as a text, and then I just got off the phone with my friend from Utah, and he had something kind of interesting happen, and I want to tell you about that. And then I've got an email. I got my computer out here, and I got an email from my friend Greg from Tennessee, and he had a pretty interesting experience over the last weekend, and I'm just going to read you that one. So let me start out. You know, I talked about my my experience with Eddie that came to my house here a few nights ago, and interested in machinery equipment, especially bulldozers. And I had a couple little things to that story that I didn't tell you in the first video. And number one is I never did try to roll over and look and see if I could see them standing in the room, because I didn't want to scare the little ones or spook them. And so I was laying on my left side facing away from them. And so, but at one point during this whole thing, I actually felt a hand on my shoulder. And of course I was laying on my left side, so it would be my right shoulder. And not sure whether that would have been Eddie or his little brother Lionel, but one of them apparently reached out and just touched my shoulder briefly, and I felt that. The other thing was when I was trying to dig back for a bulldozer memory to tell Eddie, about 10 years ago, I had the opportunity to run a smaller dozer, and it was a case, about a 16,000-pound dozer, which is about the same size as a D4 Caterpillar. And when I was going into that, I remember him wanting something bigger, and so that's why I had to dig way back into the memory to get that one, the TD24 that I talked about. So I was thinking about what I was going to do, and I thought it was kind of cool doing that memory movie. I'm going to call them memory movies. And I thought it'd be kind of cool to do that again, and and maybe if Eddie and his dad and his little brother come back again, maybe I'm thinking about trying to take them on one of my memorable rides on my Honda Goldwing, and all the years I rode Goldwing all over the country and went some really spectacular places. And so I figure I might try to do that one again if I get the opportunity, because they seem to enjoy the bulldozer one. Well, now let me. After I did that first one, my friend in Utah, and he kind of had that same idea, and he's been dealing with a family group that lives not too far from him, and so he was kind of trying to search through his memory and try to figure out what they might like as far as a memory movie. Well, he had the young one named Lewis that showed up at his house in the middle of the night. He woke up, had to, like the rest of us old guys, had to get up in the middle of the night and use the facility. And he laid back down, and he felt the presence there, and it was Lewis. And so he asked Lewis, he said, "Would you like something like that? And go ask your dad, make sure it's okay." And so he said, as soon as he said that, bang, Lewis was gone. And he said a little bit later, here's Lewis is back, and he can feel that there's more there too. Well, Lewis's dad's name is Turlo, and his mother's name is Gwendolyn, and he has a little brother named Jonathan. My friend wasn't sure whether the little one Jonathan was there or not, but he's pretty sure that mom and dad were there. And so he decided now my friend in Utah is a Navy veteran, and he spent some time on an amphibious assault ship named the USS Peleliu. It's been decommissioned now, so it's no longer an active ship. But he decided that he would try to go back through his memories of his Navy days on that ship. And so kind of take them along if they wanted to come along. So he said he'd kind of rehearse this a little. I got to make sure I don't lose my email that I want to read you here in a minute. But anyway, so basically he said that it was on the pier at Long Beach, And so he said he kind of took him along in a memory movie, walking up to the ship and walking the whole length of the ship. It was 800 and some feet long, pretty good sized boat. And then he went up the entranceway to the ship, I call it the bow, and went on the ship and kind of went and checked in and went through security and, kind of took him on a tour of the ship, of everything that was there in his mind, remembering all that. And he tried to include things like the sounds and the smells and all that kind of stuff. And he said it was about probably 20 minutes long, but he said he really got the impression that it was something they had never been able to experience before, and that they really kind of liked that. And that they kind of like him telling the story, but it was a visual with visuals and smells and sounds and the whole thing. And he thinks that Sasquatch family, that they really kind of like that whole idea. It was something new to them. And so he sent me a long text the other morning to tell me about it. And I just got off the phone clarifying a few points with him. And he was, he wasn't up on the mountain with him. He was actually in bed, laying in his bed and going through all this. And they were there at his house. So I thought that was pretty darn cool. And so that's my first story. My second story is I've got another fellow I've been working with, and a guy named Greg, and he lives in eastern Tennessee. And, he just sent me an email this morning about something that he experienced last week. Now, a while back, I kind of helped him, because let me back up a little bit. He's been a squatcher for many, many years. And he spent about 10 years or so, like some of the rest of us, out there banging on trees and stuff, looking for undiscovered apes until he figured out what's going on. And he reached out to me, and I've had quite a bit of back and forth communication with him. And his mother, who lives in Mississippi, is also a squatcher, and I've had communication with her as well. In fact, I just recently heard from her and asked him to make sure that that Storm Helene hadn't affected them too much, and they said no, they were both fine. It hit other parts of the country a lot worse than them, and his place up in eastern Tennessee and her place down in Mississippi both survived unscathed, which was good. But let me find this email and let me read it to you. And as you know about me trying to read emails, sometimes it's a little awkward. Okay, I'm going to get up here, and of course I took my glasses off because I can read better without my glasses with the light here. And he says, well, Chuck, I had to send you something about what happened this past weekend. And by the way, congrats on the 500th video. It was great. Went camping this past weekend in the area where I had my very first encounter 14 years ago. It's about 30 miles from the area that I'm regularly visiting and where I was told, quote, things would be different now, end quote. During the trip, there were two major happenings that I wasn't expecting. This area is on the opposite side of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park than where I usually go to, and there's a large picnic area near the campground where we were staying. We usually walk the campground roads late at night and stop for a bit at the picnic area. After a few minutes of standing there, a baseball-sized white orb appeared at the edge of the tree line about 100 feet away. It was moving smoothly from ground level to about 10 feet above the ground, also moving left and right and dropping back down to the ground. It was making these moves over and over in random fashion and changing colors: amber, green, blue, and white. A few minutes later, a second orb appeared about 20 feet to the left and was doing the same type of moves. One thing I found really peculiar was that the entire time they would keep exactly the same distance apart from each other. No matter what they did or how far left or right they moved, they were always exactly the same distance apart. Well, they're putting on a show for him, and they were choreographed. And that's pretty cool. So I began talking to them, thanking them for coming and what their names were. I never got an answer, but immediately got the biggest zap I've ever experienced. It didn't hurt, but my entire upper body had a numb and electrical feeling, very strong. I told them thank you and to please come visit our campsite if they'd like. After a couple minutes, the feeling started dying down and faded. Soon after, the orb seemed to move back into the woods and dissipated. Then we headed back to our site. Okay, now I got to change hands so I can scroll this up a little bit. So Okay, the second thing was what really got me. About 3 a.m. we retired to our tents. I left my phone in my car, so I don't know what time it happened, but it was still dark. In my tent, it was totally dark except on the side by my head. There was a soft light from a building down the road that illuminated the wall on the side of my head was on. At one point, I was lying on my back and woke up for some reason. I turned my head over toward that illuminated side of the tent, and there was a wavy, shimmering distortion between me and the wall of the tent. I could see the lit wall of the tent right through the image, and it looked just like the fluttering heat waves above a hot fire or a heater would appear. At first I thought it was my eyes, but I rubbed them and it was still there. I even reached out to touch the wall of the tent to make sure it wasn't the wind moving the tent wall, and it was perfectly still. Then what I've heard you talk about so many times came to mind. It was one of the forest people in distorted form. It was right beside my head, and I was looking at it in amazement. I felt a total calmness and peaceful feeling, completely not afraid like you'd think I'd be. All I remember is as soon as that thought came to mind, I just smiled at it, yes, smiled at it, and went right back to sleep. It had to be them putting me back to sleep, as there's no way I'd normally do any of that. I didn't even have a chance to ask any questions. The next thing I remember was waking up in the morning. It was an amazing experience. I've got one other thing that happened. I'll tell you about that in another email, as I know this has been really long. But I've learned, for the most part, I seem to have one specific forest person I'm dealing with. The rabbit hole is getting deeper and deeper, Chuck. We're going back in a couple of weeks for 3 nights, so maybe I'll get some answers. Who knows? Thanks for listening. Greg from Tennessee. Okay, well, I just got that one this morning, and I think that's pretty cool, and I'm sure I'll be hearing more from Greg. So one other thing before I let you go is I haven't been out with my partner Kevin lately, but he had something happen the night after I last left Hilltop. And I did a video that said there was a different vibe that last night I was there. And he stayed a little bit longer, and the night after that he was out with Wayne, and they had a pretty phenomenal experience. And Kevin's he just put up a video this afternoon, a little bit ago, to talk about that. So he's got 2 videos he just uploaded. He just got back from a couple of solo nights apparently up at West Side, which is a different place we go to, and there's an elder there named Harad who's in his 80s, and we've had communication with him, and Kevin had communication with him this time, and he had a couple other ones that he was dealing with as well. So you can go over the Arizona Squatch channel and watch those videos if you want. And but he just put those up here just a little bit ago today, and I haven't talked to him about it since, but I'll probably call him after I get done shooting this video up and see if he's got anything else to add on that. So that's some kind of interesting stories for you. That's 4 of them, and pretty beautiful afternoon here. The heat wave's broken a little bit. It's around 90 degrees, and there's enough clouds so that the sun's kind of been behind the clouds a little bit, and so it's not so stiflingly hot. And no Flapjack's out here in the van with me, and he wants to be with his dad. So as I always tell you, take care of each other and love each other and take care of yourself. And it's a wonderful world that God's given us. And so until I talk to you again, let me give you one more look at old Flapjack down here. He's laying here down here by my feet. Flapjack, hey, say hi to the people. They're your fans. Let me just tell you, peace out.